Bibliophiles of the internet, my name's Adriana and today I'm here to bring you my May wrap-up. The first thing I read in May was the latest Captive Prince short story, which was The Adventures of Charles the Venetian Cloth Merchant by C.S. Pacat. In this novella, everyone's favorite Venetian cloth merchant, Charles, is trying to make an honest living selling the finest Venetian wares, but a competing merchant is sullying his good name and trying to swipe his customers out from under his feet. Lucky for Charles, he has two very good friends in high places who show up in disguise to help him restore his honor and his good name. I honestly didn't think that anything would ever be able to compare to the glory that was the Summer Palace, but this novella was such a joy and it was brilliant. Everywhere you look, Charles, I'm Charles, you're Charles, he, she, we, they, Charles, everyone and everything is Charles and absolutely nothing hurts. I was pleasantly surprised by how involved two certain princes were in this adventure. It was just such a fun, engaging, sharp story about ruthless manipulation and underhanded schemes, all in the name of honoring a worthy friend who is and always will be loyal to the crown. There are no words. That's all I have to say. 5 stars. Then for the BookTube SFF Awards, I reread The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. This is the sequel to the 5th season, and even reading this a second time, I was once again rendered powerless. This series is Jemisin's magnum opus. As I've discussed before, she fearlessly, explicitly explores the effects of systematic oppression, internalized racism, corrupt institutions, and the perpetuation of colonization. There are so many layers, there's so much to discover and grapple with, and Jemisin never gives her audience the easy way out, which I really appreciate. I'm actually planning to finally do an individual review / discussion for this book in the near future, so keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, of course, I gave this book 5 stars again. After that, I read Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Seanan McGuire. This is the companion / prequel to Every Heart a Doorway, and both of the books in this verse so far are queer-lit, by the way. And this one tells the full story of what happened to Jack and Jill when they discovered their door into a dark, deadly world known as the Moors. This story was such a delight to read, but in a very twisted way, of course, and it's really exciting because it opens up so many great possibilities for this verse. All at once, it's an interesting spin on the vampire and mad scientist narratives, but at its heart, it's really a discussion about gender roles, inhibiting children, and stripping away their right to choice, and how hatred and pain can brew within the prison of limitations and boundaries. I did upload a full spoiler-free review for this book, which I will link down below in case you want to hear more of my thoughts, but overall, I gave this book 4 stars. Then I finally read Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This is about an orphan and librarian named Laszlo Strange who has always been drawn to this mystical, mysterious, nameless city referred to only as Weep. No one's ever journeyed there and lived, and there's little to no viable information or research that's been successfully documented either, so that makes Laszlo's dream of going there a little bit difficult. Until one day when a traveling embassy of warriors from Weep shows up in the library to recruit a team of elite experts to help them solve an unspeakable problem plaguing the people of Weep. Laini Taylor's talent is that she creates magic. She writes and it becomes magic. There's no other way to explain how she creates these bizarrely beautiful worlds and crafts these unique, spectacular moments that you could never in a million years imagine on your own, but as soon as you read her words, they consume you and they become real. She is a master storyteller because she sprinkles these details, large and small, throughout the book, and the first time you encounter them you think, okay, I don't know what to do with that right now, I'm gonna file it away for later. And then once you're in the thick of it, she sneaks up on you and she whispers, hey, remember that thing I told you about 100, 200, 300, even 400 pages ago? Yeah, it's really fucking important. That's what I love. Her stories turn on you in a second. She always delivers that moment where your eyes are open and suddenly everything is different. She pulled it off in Daughter of Smoke and Bone. She's done it here again. The way her stories unfold is second to none. More importantly, I love how Laini Taylor centers this story around the idea that all people are capable of great good and great evil, and the expression of one does not cancel out the other. They're not opposite forces, but rather entities that coexist within each and every one of us. There's also this discussion about how an onslaught of hatred and bloodshed cannot drive out hatred, how more war cannot put an end to war or lay to rest old hurts. It's very much a story about cyclical trauma, how we transfer our pain to others, and how suffering is inherited from one generation to the next. In the end, this was an incredible, incomparable story. I loved it and I gave it 4.5 stars. And finally, my poetry collection for May was Pansy by Andrea Gibson. Gibson explores so much in this collection. They write about queerness, falling in love, queer desire, but it's also an awakening where they confront their own white privilege and rally for more awareness concerning crimes and injustices committed against all marginalized groups. Gibson also explores their childhood, their experiences with therapy, the trauma, assault, and rape they've lived through, their struggle against depression and suicidal thoughts, living with illness. Ultimately, I think this collection is about the realization that healing is a lifelong journey. It's not something that you just experience once. It's something that you need to discover again and again in so many different forms. Because the act of healing is evolutionary. It changes over time. I have so much respect for how Andrea Gibson handles words and manipulates their meaning. They use language in such surprising, refreshing ways, creating these phrases you wouldn't expect so that when the poem reaches its breaking point, you feel it. I'll be the first to admit there were poems in here I just didn't get, entire sections that went over my head, but I also feel like that's not really the point. Gibson makes and discovers their own kind of logic. They write with such conviction that you can't help but believe it, even if you don't fully understand it. Just the movement and the rawness of these lines leaves a distinct impression. This is definitely not the last collection I'll be reading from Andrea Gibson. I gave Pansy 4.5 stars. So those are all the books I read in May. It was a pretty modest month. In the comments below, let me know if you've read any of these books, what you thought of them, or let me know what do you plan to read next. But that is everything I have for this wrap up today. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I will catch you on the flip side of the page. Bye!